She was gone, but I kept hearing her voice call me. Hi, I'm Nicole, a survivor of childhood trauma and one of the youngest people in U.S. history to ever testify in court against a parent in a double homicide case. I was 5 when I witnessed it, 6 when I spoke the truth. Now I help others unlearn the beliefs they had to carry just to survive, so they can claim their voice and feel safe in their own story. This is Unlearn the Trauma, real stories, quiet grief, and the truth about healing after childhood trauma. In this episode, I open up about what I lost when my mom died. Not just her presence, but the version of me that never got to grow up with her. If you've ever wondered who you could have been, this one's for you. Real quick before we dive in, if this podcast has touched you, the best way to help is by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It takes 30 seconds and it means the world to me. I didn't know where she ended and where she began. At 5 years old, your mom isn't just your mom. She's the world you live in. She's the sun that rises, the air you breathe, the arms you return to. She's not separate from you. She's woven into you. Thread by thread, heartbeat by heartbeat. Every word you speak echoes hers. Every comfort you crave is her touch, her breath, her presence. She's the hum beneath your silence. She's the rhythm you don't realize you're moving to until it stops. So when she died, it didn't feel like losing someone. It felt like I disappeared too. Like someone had taken the outline of me and just erased it. Not with a quiet, permanent gentleness, but with rage, real, violent, targeted rage. I didn't understand it at the time. I just knew something inside me went quiet, like a light went out and nobody else noticed. No one paused and looked around and said, something's missing. I started school with a backpack that felt heavier, not from books, but from the ache. The world kept moving, school, birthdays, holidays. But inside me, I was still. I spent years trying to figure out who I became in her place, because someone had to fill that silence. And silence, it turns out, is not empty. It's a container. It holds everything you don't know how to say. So I built something, a version of me stitched together from scraps, grief, instinct, survival. I became really good at being okay, at saying I'm fine with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I learned how to read a room, how to soften my presence, and how to disappear in plain sight. I tried to make it solid. I tried to make it stick. Tried to believe it was me. But sometimes I wonder if I ever became anyone at all, or if I'm just echoes of who I used to be before the loss, before the silence, before the light went out and left me wandering in the dark. And for a long time after she died, I kept hearing her call my name. Clear as day, not in dreams, in moments, in mornings, in the in-between. I'd walk into the room and ask my grandmother what she wanted. She'd always look at me confused and say, I didn't call you. But I know that voice. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't my imagination. It was her. It was the voice of someone wanting their child to come to them. The voice you use when you're calling them home. The gentle pull, not loud, not urgent, just full of love. It wasn't frightening. It was familiar. Like standing in the sunlight after a long winter. Like remembering a song you used to sing before you knew what sadness was. She was gone, but somehow she was still reaching for me. And maybe I was still trying to find my way back to her. Because when you lose someone who made you, you don't just lose love, you lose your compass. I spent so much of my life trying to rebuild that compass, but it's so hard to build from pieces you never got to keep. I don't remember her laugh. I don't remember how she smelled or how she held me. Just knowing that she did. And somehow, that had to be enough. I looked for her in books, in music, in the faces of kind strangers. I searched for her in my reflection, wondering if maybe her smile lived in the curve of my own. I carried her with me like a secret, a quiet ache that never left. And sometimes I wonder what she'd think of me now. the choices I've made, the life I've built, the walls I've put up and the ones I've tried to tear down. Would she recognize me? Would I recognize myself if she walked through the door? Grief doesn't move in straight lines. It loops and bends and circles back to when you least expect it. It's not a wound that heals. It's a place you learn to live around, like a missing tooth your tongue can't help but find again and again. And still, through the years, there are moments, quiet ones, fleeting ones, where I feel her, not like a ghost, not like a dream, but like a breath on the back of my neck, like warmth in a cold room. I think maybe that's what love really is. The part of someone that stays, even when everything else goes. Even when the memories fade and the voices grow quiet. Even when time marches forward and people expect you to be okay. Love lingers in the way I still look to the sky on hard days, wondering if maybe she's somewhere in the clouds. Watching, waiting, whispering my name. This story, my story, doesn't even start with grief. It starts with love. Unshakable, unexplainable love, the kind that roots itself so deeply in your bones that even death can't dig it out. And maybe that's the point. Maybe we don't move on from those we lose. Maybe we carry them forward in our stories, in our scars, in the quiet ways we learn to live without them, but never truly apart from them. And maybe that's the point. Maybe we don't move on from those we lose. Maybe we carry them forward in our stories, in our scars, in the quiet ways we learn to live without them, but never truly apart from them. Healing isn't about getting over it. Maybe it's about learning to live alongside the ache and still choosing love. So this is for her, and for the child I was, the one who lost her world and spent a lifetime trying to rebuild it. This is my way of saying, I'm still here, I'm still listening, and maybe, just maybe, I'm finding my way back to you too. Even in the places we least expect it. And that's the thread I want to pull on today. Because love, loss, and trauma, they don't just live in our stories. They live in our bodies. Which brings me to something I read recently, something that still lives in my nervous system. Someone once told me the child who had to grow up too fast becomes the adult who doesn't know how to rest. They feel guilty slowing down, equate stillness with being unworthy, and only feel valuable when they're doing, because survival taught them love must be earned, but they weren't meant to live in overdrive forever. Rest isn't laziness, it's a return to the self that was never given space just to be. When you spent your childhood in survival mode, stillness feels unsafe. I don't remember everything that happened. I was too young, but my body does. For years, I pieced together the truth, not from memories, but from how my nervous system reacts to life. After my mom died, everything changed. I wasn't just a kid anymore. I became a caretaker for my younger siblings, not because I was ready, but because someone had to be. There wasn't space to fall apart. There wasn't time to be small. Only survival, only responsibility. I may not remember every moment of fear or grief, but I grew up in it, and my body learned what it needed to do to survive. Stillness has never felt safe, because in my childhood, stillness wasn't calm. It was waiting for the next crisis, the next scream, the next door slamming shut. Even now, I have to remind myself, silence isn't always a threat. Peace doesn't mean something bad is coming. But that's hard to believe. When danger used to whisper, when it crept in slowly without warning. Healing means teaching my body a new story, one it never got the chance to live the first time. But grief isn't always about what we felt. Sometimes it's about what we never got the chance to feel at all. There's a quote I read from the Center for Healing that says, trauma is not always about what happened, it's often about what didn't happen. This one hits like a punch. People talk about grief like it's memories, but what if you don't have any? I was 5. I have flashes, a few images, but not a life full of moments and memories with her. No teenage years with her advice, no adult years with her phone calls. She never met my kids. I never got to be her grown-up daughter. So when I say I'm grieving, it's not about nostalgia. It's about absence. It's about a love that never got to happen. And honestly, that's a lonelier kind of grief. because it doesn't come with stories. It comes with silence. And the longer I've sat with that, the more I realize I didn't just lose her. I lost the future she was supposed to be a part of. I didn't just lose my mom when I was 5. I lost everything that would have happened after. No bedtime stories, no brushing my hair before school, no birthday cakes with her handwriting on the cake and on my card. No one to show me how to be a girl, how to grow, how to be me. And the world doesn't always get how much that absence hurts, because it's invisible. People think trauma is what happened, but the deepest wounds, the ones that shaped me, are about what never did. No comfort, no safety, no real childhood. So when I grieve, I'm not just mourning what I went through, I'm mourning the life I never got to live. And just a quick pause before we shift gears. If what I'm sharing resonates, would you please pause for just a moment and follow Unlearn the Trauma wherever you listen? And if you leave a review, it'll help other survivors find this podcast when they need it the most. All right, let's talk about memory and how it loves to go silent when we need it the most. Okay, I'm ready. I want to remember. Great! Which trauma would you like to explore today? I was actually hoping for something good, like maybe a memory of my mom. Oh, yeah. That file is corrupted. Seriously? Nothing? I can offer you a blurry flash. You two dancing on a coffee table. She's smiling. You're laughing. Both of you are completely in it. And maybe a smell that smells fresh like Sunday morning, but no context. That's it? That's all I get? Yup, unless you like an emotionally devastating flashback that you didn't ask for. Those are always available. That skit made me laugh and ache because it's true. The older I get, the more I think about not just what I lost, but who I might have been. I think a lot about who I might have been if she hadn't died, not in some abstract, poetic way, but in the quiet, in-between moments, when I'm brushing my teeth, when I'm standing in line at the grocery store, when someone asks me where I'm from, I have to pause. Not because I don't know the answer, because I have more than one. There's the safe version, a city, a school, a house. And then there's the real one, the one that starts with loss, the version of me who had a mother, who felt held, known, and safe. She never got a chance to grow up, and I still don't know who I might have been if she had. Not just the memories I lost, but the version of me I never got to grow into. That's its own kind of grief, because she wasn't just someone I loved. She was my foundation, the person who knew me before I even knew myself. And when someone like that is ripped away from you, it's not just the loss of them, it's the unraveling of everything that was built on top of their love. There's no blueprint for who to become when the person who was supposed to guide you through life is suddenly gone. Because when you lose someone that fundamental, that early, the loss doesn't just live in the past. It follows you into every version of your future. There are milestones I reached without her that felt hollow. First days of school, learning to drive, graduations. Things other people experienced with their parents in the front row. For me, those moments came with an ache I couldn't explain. I'd smile, I'd perform, I'd go through the motions. But underneath, I was always aware of the empty seat, the absence, the silence where her voice should have been. I didn't just miss her presence. I missed the possibility of her. The things we never got to do together, the questions I never got to ask, the ordinary days that never happened. Not having her meant that every achievement felt like it was missing context, like it happened in black and white instead of full color. I still miss her, not just as my mother, but as the part of me I didn't get to keep. There's a strange kind of mourning that happens when you lose someone young. You grieve them, yes, but you also grieve the version of yourself you were supposed to become. The version that got to be soft, the version that didn't have to grow up in a house shaped by trauma, the version who felt safe enough to be a child. That grief lingers in the body, even when the mind can't fully remember. And no matter how much time passes, that loss doesn't just become smaller. You just grow around it. You learn how to carry it differently. Some days it feels like background noise. Other days it hits like a wave out of nowhere, knocking the air right out of your lungs. It wasn't fair. None of it was. And I'll never pretend it didn't change everything. And it didn't just change the big moments. It changed the small ones too. The way I double-check locks. The way I brace for disappointment even when there's no reason to. The way I flinch when someone raises their voice, even if it's not directed at me. That's what people don't talk about enough. How trauma embeds itself into your habits, your instincts, your posture. There's this idea that time heals, that things get better, that people move on. But healing isn't linear, and it's not about forgetting. It's about understanding the way pain reshapes you and trying to make peace with what it leaves behind. Because it did change everything. It changed the way I see people. It changed how I trust. It changed the way I define safety, not by what's promised. It made me on edge. It made me watchful. It made me older than I should have been. It's strange trying to live a life when parts of your story are missing. Some days I feel like a puzzle that never got all the pieces, like I'm walking around with blanks. Not just in my memory, but in who I am. And I've learned memory is a funny thing. It's not just about what we remember, but how we carry what we don't. The blanks aren't just holes. They're spaces where things should have been built. Identity, connection, safety. And because they weren't, I had to improvise. I filled them in with guesses, borrowed traits. I mirrored what I saw in others. I became a patchwork of survival instincts and borrowed selves. For a long time, I thought something was wrong with me, like I was just going through the motions while everyone else was actually living. But now I understand differently. I wasn't pretending. I was protecting. The version of me that died with her, she's still gone, and I don't think that part of me is ever coming back. The girl, the one who existed before loss, before fear, before betrayal, she disappeared when my world fell apart. And for a long time, I kept trying to find her. I searched through old photos, hoping they'd jog something real, proof that I ever existed without pain. I asked questions no one really wanted to answer. I listened for scraps of memory, anything that might tell me who I used to be before everything broke. I thought I had to find the girl I was before, but maybe the point isn't finding her. Maybe it's noticing the me who's been growing here all along, and that's not nothing. She's not the same. She's carried more weight, more fire, more caution. And she's real. And she is mine. It's taken years, quiet breakdowns, hard reflection, and a lot of starting over to even recognize that something has been growing in place of what was lost. I used to think that healing meant becoming whole again, like some kind of return, but now I think healing is about becoming something new, something honest, something real. The truth is, I didn't just survive what happened. I adapted to it. And that adaptation is powerful. It's not perfect and it's not painless, but it's proof that I kept going, that I made a life with what I had, and even when I didn't know who I was becoming, I showed up anyway. Sometimes I still wonder who my mom would have helped me become. Would I be softer, less guarded, more trusting? Would I laugh louder, cry easier, love differently? There are entire versions of myself that I'll never meet, and that hurts in a way I can't always name. But I've also met parts of me that were born from the wreckage. Strength, intuition, empathy. But because I had no other choice, people assume I'm strong because I've overcome something. But I didn't overcome it. I adapted around it. What people admire in me came from pain, and I wish it hadn't. I wish I could say I learned compassion from being loved, but I didn't. I learned it by knowing what it's like to go without. Because for a long time, I let the loss define me. I thought I was broken. I thought I'd always be less than, always be unfinished. But now I see I'm not missing, I'm evolving. And that version of me I'm growing into, she may not be the one I imagined, but she's real, and she's earned her place. I'm learning to mother myself now, to speak gently to the scared parts, to hold space for the angry parts, to celebrate the parts that keep going. It's slow work. Some days it feels impossible, but every time I choose to stay, to feel, to reflect, to reach out instead of shutting down, I move closer to her, to the me I'm becoming. There's power in saying I don't have all the pieces, but I'm still building. I don't remember everything, but I'm still showing up. I wasn't given a safe beginning, but I'm giving myself a softer middle. Grief isn't just sorrow, it's love that's been forced to stretch, and I've learned how to stretch with it. I may carry the ache, but now I also carry the strength. And somewhere inside that ache is a compass. Not the one I lost, but the one I've been shaping, growing from truth, from pain, from the stubborn act of becoming. Healing isn't just about going back to the person I was before the trauma. That version of me didn't survive, and I've stopped waiting for her to return. What I'm learning now isn't how to undo the damage, but how to live with it without letting it take everything. I'm not trying to be whole in the way I once imagined. I'm just trying to be real, present, to meet myself where I am, not where I used to be. And maybe that's enough. Maybe becoming isn't about returning to who I was. Maybe it's about allowing space for who I am now and who I am still becoming. We don't always become who we would have been, but that doesn't mean who we are now isn't still worth honoring. It's one thing to honor who I am now, but sometimes to understand who I'm becoming, I have to check in with who I was. So tonight, I'm going back to a 5-year-old me, the girl who stayed. Hey, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Do you remember the version of you who was really happy?
Yeah. She danced on the table with Mommy.
She loved music.
She thought everything was safe.
Do you think she's still here?
No, she left with Mommy.
I think about her all the time. How you smiled with your whole face, how you laughed without looking around first.
She was brave in a different way.
Yeah, before she had to be brave like this.
Do you miss her too?
Every day, but I'm learning how to let her back in, little by little. Like when we dance in the kitchen or laugh at something silly.
So she's not gone?
No. She's just waiting until it feels safe to come out again. That little girl still lives in me. And hearing from you, listeners who've lived through their own versions of loss, reminds me I'm not alone in this. Because the truth is, our stories don't just live inside of us. They connect us. They remind us we're part of something bigger. So let's go to Midnight Mail. Hi, Nicole. I've had people in my life try to compare their grief to mine, even though I was just a kid when I lost my mom. It always makes me feel invisible. How do you handle it when people just don't get the difference? I'm really glad you wrote this. When you lose a parent as a child, it's a kind of grief a lot of people don't understand, especially when others try to compare it to something that happened later in their life. Like it's all the same kind of pain, but it's not. Childhood grief is disorienting. It's not just losing someone you love, it's losing the person who helped you understand the world in the first place. You didn't just lose a mother, you lost safety. You lost rhythm. You lost regulation. And maybe even your sense of self. You're not being too sensitive, you're not exaggerating, and you're not imagining it. Your grief is valid. Your pain is real. And you deserve the space to feel it without being compared, minimized, or explained away. There's this idea a lot of us carry quietly, painfully, even if we never say it out loud. Healing is about going back to who I was before the trauma. But what if that version of you doesn't exist anymore? Or never had the chance to fully become? Here's what I've had to unlearn. Healing isn't about rewinding the story. It's not about pretending nothing happened. It's about squeezing yourself back into the shape you were before everything fell apart. Because trauma doesn't just wound, it rewrites, it interrupts. It splits the timeline into before and after. So no, I'm not trying to go back. I'm trying to move forward with honesty, with softness, with space for the person I'm still becoming. Healing isn't a return, it's a recreation, not of who I was, but of who I never got the chance to be. Because I was too busy surviving. And maybe that version of me deserves to exist more than any version I left behind. Today I told you about what it's like to lose the person who made the world feel safe. Because that's what trauma does. It leaves a child reaching for pieces that were never given, trying to grow something whole in the space where love was supposed to live. And I know that version of me still lives in so many of us. The child who disappeared into the silence, the one who built self out of survival because no one showed her how. And if that was you too, I hope this episode reminded you. Even the things you never had can leave heartbreak behind, but it's okay to mourn what should have been yours. Thanks for staying with me through this story. It means more than you know. If you're looking for something to hold on to between the episodes, the kind of reminder that meets you where you are, follow me on Unlearn the Trauma on Instagram. I share weekly tips, raw moments, and quiet encouragement for when the healing gets loud. Do you ever feel like your body remembers things your mind can't? Next week, I'm talking about the nightmare I don't remember and the morning I'll never forget. We're getting into how trauma hides in your nervous system, even when the memories don't show up. You don't want to miss this. Unlearners rewrite the story, one truth at a time. You've been listening to Unlearn the Trauma, and I'm Nicole.